I have with me this morning Sean Casey. Sean is an attorney from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Sean's specialty is real estate closings as well as asset protection and estate planning. Sean and I are going to do a session this morning on land trust. Our objective is to teach you what you need to know on land trusts so that you can go home and use them in your career as a real estate entrepreneur. I want you to know what they are, why you're using them, and how to use them. And that's the subject of this section this morning. Okay. First one on the list is, what is a land trust?
Okay, a land trust is a specific type of trust. A trust is a legal instrument that you're going to create by using certain forms. Whatever you put in the form is what will cause the trust to be in existence. A land trust is a specific type of trust. It's set up to hold the title to real property. Set up so that the property will be titled in a trust, you'll have control over the trust, and you'll be able to make the trustee do what you want him to do.
Okay, so a land trust is really nothing more than a vehicle for holding title.
That's right.
Okay. How long has a land trust been around, Sean? Did you and I invent this?
No, we didn't. Much as I'd like to take credit, no, we didn't. It's been around a very long time, hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years. So we're just using what was already available to us for our protection and our benefit.
That's correct. So we're not making up new rules here. We're not telling you to go out and get yourself in trouble.
Okay. Well, what does a trust consist of? How many documents are involved in it?
Well, there's two parts. The first is you need a trust agreement between you as the beneficiary and the trustee.
Okay. Let me get this straight now. The beneficiary is actually the owner of the trust.
That's correct.
Okay. The trustee is just the trustee for the trust appointed by the beneficiary to do nothing except what the beneficiary directs.
Right.
Okay, so if you want to own the property, you want to be the beneficiary.
That's correct.
And the truth is the trust owns the house.
That's right.
You own the trust, right?
That's right.
All right.
And the way that the trust owns the house is you have a deed that you're going to record. Unlike the trust agreement, you don't record the trust agreement ever.
Okay.
You do not need to do that, and we'll talk about privacy in a minute.
Okay.
But the deed, which is going to title the property into the trust, gets recorded.
So you record the deed at the courthouse from, if you're taking title to the property, you would record the deed from the seller to your trustee as trustee.
That's correct.
And take title to the property in the trust.
Right.
If you already own a property and you're putting it in a trust, you're the grantor and you're granting title to your trustee as trustee for your benefit.
That's correct.
Okay. So the deed will either go from the seller to your trustee or from you to the trustee.
That's right.
Okay. You record the deed at the courthouse, and at the same time you fill out the trust agreement.
That's right.
And you put it in your filing cabinet at home.
Correct.
All right?
Now, just one more point. You always have to have a trust agreement, folks. Do not deed properties to trustees and not have agreements with them. Otherwise, when they die, their spouses will say thank you for the house you donated, and you will end up in court.
So, as long as you're alive, the trust agreement is not as important. You can always produce one at a moment's notice because you're in control of it. But if you die while that property's in that trust and a trust agreement doesn't exist, you've created a mess for your heirs.
Yes.
Make sure you do the trust agreement. Take at least, 5 minutes to fill out a trust agreement?
At least 5 minutes.
Well, we're going to go through that and show them how to do that.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about some of the benefits of putting a property in a land trust and why we'd want to do it, Sean.
Okay, the first and foremost benefit is to get some liability protection. Now, you're going to get this both personally and for your real estate. Because you see, right now what happens is this. If I sue you and I get a judgment, all of your real estate gets encumbered by the judgment. It automatically attaches. It becomes a lien on all of your real estate. If you own 10 houses with $1 million in equity, even if I've just got a $2,000 judgment, it's going to attach to all of your real estate. And that means if you want to sell any part of it, you want to mortgage any piece, you've got to pay me off to get me out of the way. So what's happened, he's been preaching it all weekend, is you let me get in control of your real estate and take your money. You do not want to be in that position, particularly if I'm coming after big dollars.
So that's the case if I own them in my own name.
That's right. And that's what most people will have is this situation now.
Yes. So the objective is to put the title to the property in a land trust so that a judgment against me personally does not attach to the property.
That's right.
Because I don't own the property. I own the trust, which owns the property.
Right. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to go home, you're going to take every piece of real estate you now own, put it into a separate land trust. You'll have a separate trust agreement, a separate deed that'll be recorded. You'll have each property in a separately created entitled trust agreement, or trust. And because of that, what will happen is this. If there's an accident at a property, let's say it's the 123 Main Street Land Trust, someone's going to look up, find out that's the owner, sue the owner. But they can't get a judgment against all the other properties because that property is owned by one trust, and the trust only owns one property.
In this case, the owner would be that trust.
That's right.
Go say that they'd be suing that trust, and they may get a judgment against that trust because it's the owner if the accident happened on the property. But they may also sue you personally because you were managing the property and you were involved in it, and so a judgment could come down against you personally as well.
That's right.
If it did come down against you personally, it would attach to you personally, but would not attach to the rest of the properties because you don't own them. The trusts own them. But if they sue the trust that owns the particular property that had the accident or whatever, then it could attach to that property.
And that property
not affect
only.
The rest of your properties.
That's right.
Keeping all your eggs out of one basket is a smart move as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you have one trust, one house. Not more than one house in each trust. All right?
Yeah. And now, who's in control, Ron?
Okay. What about privacy?
Privacy is an important aspect of your real estate investment career. Two reasons. Number one is when it comes to lawsuits, if I can go down to the courthouse when someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to sue so-and-so, and I can find out that that person owns a lot of real estate, I'm a very happy guy. Because you see, it's easy to file a lawsuit and win. It's getting paid that counts. When I'm functioning on a contingent basis, I don't care about winning as much as I care about getting paid. If I come looking for you and you're in the courthouse, I know I got a winner, and I know I'm going to get paid. But if your property's all held in a land trust and I go into the courthouse, what do I find? Nothing. You're not there. And the point is, if you're not there, then I don't know whether or not I should take you down or try to. So I don't know what's there as far as filing a lawsuit.
Let's explain to them why they're not there. Okay? When you record the deed at the courthouse and you're the beneficiary, your name appears nowhere on the deed. The rest of the world don't have a clue you have any interest in this property whatsoever. Thus you have privacy. The only name that'll appear on the deed is the trustee's name, not the beneficiary's name. That's how privacy is created. And as Sean will attest, and I have learned from vast experience and from a lot of people throughout the country, you don't want to own anything as far as the rest of the world is concerned. You've got to keep your name off public record and out of the limelight. And privately go through life building an empire, but without the rest of the world knowing what empire you have. So using a land trust is a vehicle to generate that privacy.
That's correct.
Okay?
Second issue about privacy is this. When you're buying and selling a lot, everybody begins to know who you are. You're going to be dealing in certain neighborhoods an awful lot. And it's a real important point when it comes to being someone like, let's say, Disney Corporation. Can you imagine Disney going down to Orlando, knocking on a farmer's door saying, hi, we're from Disney, we're building a big theme park, we'd like to pay you 10 times what your land is really worth? No. How do they do it? They bought it in trust. Same reason you're going to be buying and selling in trust. Same reason Ron does. Realtors in Jacksonville won't even look at this guy. They think he steals houses. Think he carries a gun. Goes out and threatens a homeowner. Puts a gun to their head. He doesn't do that. He offers them a deal they can't resist.
Puts little old ladies out on the street.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. The fact they get money out of it has nothing to do with it. But you don't want your deals tempered or changed or adjusted by somebody else's perception or misperception of you. You want to be able to do business, buy them cheap, sell them for a lot of money. So you don't give the public a chance, or realtors or anybody else a chance to change how they would deal with you otherwise.
Okay. Next benefit is...
it's easy to transfer a land trust.
Easy to transfer, okay.
Two ways, of course. You could just do the old deed the property out of the trust when you sell it. Same way you would sell now. But there's another way. Your interest in the trust is personal property. It's what's called a beneficial interest. You as the beneficiary own a beneficial interest, and as a result, that personal property can be transferred to another person. It can be assigned. The document you'll see in a little bit is called an assignment of beneficial interest. That assignment is simply a piece of paper that says you assign your interest to someone else. You sign it, the trustee signs it, they get it, and it's nowhere in a public record. It's a completely private transaction that you keep in your filing cabinet.
So if we had a property in the land trust, and I wanted to transfer my interest from me to you in the land trust, I simply fill out this one piece of paper and hand it to you, and you now own the land trust.
That's correct.
Since the trust already owns the property as a public record, nothing changes at the courthouse because we're not changing the title to the property. We're only changing the interest in the trust. And that doesn't require a public transfer, paying transfer tax or any other taxes, or any other closing costs for that matter. I hand him the piece of paper. He's the owner of the trust. Now, is this a taxable event, Sean?
Absolutely.
It is a taxable transfer. I must report this to IRS as if I would have deeded him the property. But as far as closing costs go, there aren't any. As far as the rest of the world concerned, there was no transfer. Which brings us to the next subject of due on sale clauses.
That's right. The Garden St. Germain Depository Institutions Act of 1982. Sound familiar to anyone?
No.
No? See, I knew they were going to say that. This is a federal law that says that the due on sale clause in your mortgage that you have on your house or houses is enforceable by the bank. It also says that there are certain exceptions to the due on sale clause. One of which, and the only one we care about, is this. You can transfer your real estate into trust for yourself without violating the due on sale clause. They cannot call the mortgage due because you transfer from yourself to a trust created for the benefit of yourself.
And this is federal law.
Federal law.
So this will work in Cleveland.
Even in Cleveland.
Okay?
Even in Cleveland.
So avoiding the due on sale clause is commonly taught because of you put the property in a land trust, and because of the ease of transfer, if I transfer it to you, basically I'm just hiding from the lender that I transferred it.
That's right.
When I transfer that beneficial interest, it does trigger the due on sale clause, does it not?
That's true.
Okay.
But they got to figure it out first.
So basically I'm just trying to hide it from the bank that I
Right.
transferred the beneficial interest.
Right.
Would you suggest we do that for transferring a trust to an owner-occupant?
No. They'd get confused and mess it all up.
Okay. So basically what we're saying here is if you want to use that to avoid the due on sale clause, that's okay as long as you're dealing with educated parties on both sides. Because if Sean and Pat, his new wife, were uneducated owner-occupants and I transferred a property to them via assignment of beneficial interest and they didn't have a clue what I did and they didn't understand due on sale clauses, as many of you don't, and they're going to communicate with the bank. They're going to tell the bank they own the property, and the bank could have the right to call the loan due. They do have the right. They could call the loan due, and it could create a problem for these unsuspecting homeowners. And I don't want to get anybody in that position. So therefore, I will not transfer a trust to a homeowner unless they are fully aware of what's going on, and that's rare, by the way, very rare. That I would even take the time to try to explain it to a homeowner, because if you try to explain this trust stuff to a homeowner, they're just going to know something kinky's going on here, and they're going to want to know how you're trying to get at them next. It's been my experience not even mention this trust stuff to a homeowner. However, suppose Sean is an investor, an entrepreneur, understands, maybe a part of my association, understands trust. Now can I transfer this property to him for investment purposes, especially when I think he's going to wind up selling it and paying off the loan anyway? It'd be irrelevant. As long as he understands and I understand, I don't have a problem with it. So avoiding the due on sale clause is great, and it makes for a good seminar. But it also comes with a lot of problems if all the parties aren't educated involved in it. And it really comes down to this. It's nothing more than tricking the lender and letting them know, and trying to hide from them that you're transferring the property. That's all you're doing. You don't legally avoid the due on sale clause by using the land trust.
However, let me go through the steps real quick on how you do that.
All right.
A lot of times what will happen is this. You're running your ad in the paper. I buy houses fast, cash, close 10 days. Call me. Guy calls you up and says, I got a $50,000 house, $35,000 mortgage. I'm 4 months behind. I need $1,000. I want to go to Texas. I know there's a job there. My buddy said he can get me a job. All the guy really wants to do is move to Texas and save his credit. Very common scenario. If you haven't hit it yet, you're not listening.
Yes, it is.
People are going to be calling you with this scenario. You're going to say to him immediately, what kind of mortgage do you have? And the guy's going to say, One of them conventional things. And you'll say, is it FHA or VA? The guy will say no. What you're going to say to him next is going to make or break the deal. You will never mention the words, we're going to do a land trust, come down to my lawyer's office, I'm going to confuse you. Don't tell him this stuff. Tell him you'll make up his back payments, give him $1,000, make his mortgage payments, and eventually pay off his loan. The guy will yell hallelujah on the phone and come meet you anytime you want. And he comes into the office. Here's what you're going to do. He will immediately sign a land trust agreement, a deed into the trust. Now what's he done so far? Just what you've done. He's put the property into a trust. The next thing that will happen is he'll sign the assignment of beneficial interest. Now who's he going to transfer it to? You. Because you're going to want the interest. In exchange for that, you're going to pay him the $1,000, make up his $2,000 in back payments. You have now bought a property. Your name does not appear on a record. It's not on your credit report. Nobody knows you own it. You're making money. The bank has no idea what has happened.
And probably could care less. You're bringing their payments current, and you're going to keep them current. You've just done the bank a tremendous favor, haven't you?
Absolutely.
However, they don't look at it that way.
Well, no, they might be upset if they found out, but they rarely find out, notice, or care.
So what you're telling me is, by having the owner put the property in a land trust, and then you get an assignment of that land trust, you're still keeping it from the bank that you're transferring the interest in the property.
That's
now,
right.
If the bank really got nasty and they wanted to call the loan due because they thought it was transferred, what would you do?
I'd tell them, that's okay, I'll keep the rent. No, I wouldn't do that.
Well, what could you do? Couldn't you just take the trust agreement down to the bank and say, look, I'm handling the property for this guy. Here's the trust agreement. He's the beneficial interest.
Because your seller has done what he's allowed to do.
Nothing to do about it. Just leave the assignment at home. Okay.
Next thing along the way.
Are you sure you want to go on video and tell them all these sneaky, underhanded tricks?
I don't know about that.
All right.
They might find out I'm a lawyer, Ron.
Personal loan liability.
See, one of the great things in life that you want to avoid is being personally liable on any loan that you don't have to borrow. As you know, Ron is a big advocate of not dealing with banks. But if you're going to deal with them,
at least
you're going to deal with them.
Not becoming personally liable anyway.
That's right. Yeah. Which is hard to get money out of a bank without doing that.
That's true.
Let's face it.
That's
okay?
True.
But there are some instances, for instance, and I don't know how much you talked about assumptions yet this weekend, where you have assumable loans, non-qualifying. FHA and VA assumable loans. And what you folks have been doing generally is you go out there, the closing agent gets the assumption package, you put your name all over it, you take title, you sign the note to the bank saying you're going to be personally liable for it, and they slap it all over your credit report. From now on, you will not do that. You will take title in a land trust. The trustee will sign the documents with the bank as trustee. Does not make them personally liable. When the lender gets it back, they will put in their computer that the trust owns the property. It will not be on your credit report. You've not agreed to be liable. And nobody knows you bought it because the title was taken directly into the trust.
Okay, we better clarify that, because I can see a problem here coming. Sean said that the trustee will sign a document for the bank. Let's clear this. You are not going to walk into a bank and say, I want my trustee to sign the documents for me. I don't want to sign them. That's not what he means. He means if you're assuming a no qualifying loan, FHA or VA, or seller financing without the due on sale clause, and only if you're assuming that loan, then you can have the trustee sign as trustee. The trustee's not liable as trustee. You're not liable. You're not even on the documentation. But that will only work now with no qualifying loans. Make sure you understand that. If you've got a loan that you owe your bank right now, and you signed on it, personally guaranteed it, you're stuck with it till you pay it off or till you die. One of the two. It's the only way you're going to get out of it. Okay? But in the case of no qualifying loans, what we don't want you to do is go out and assume them in your name and let them go on your credit report when it's totally unnecessary. Because you see, without the due on sale clause in them, they can't stop the assumption. They don't control the assumption. That's why you want your trust to assume it, and it'll never come back on you personally. Incidentally, a tip on that while we're on that subject. Do not under any circumstances give your trustee Social Security number up when you're doing that. There's a place on the assumption package for you to put your trustee Social Security number. Do not, in fact, don't even get possession of your trustee Social Security number, and then you can't inadvertently give it away. Because then, when the property's sold, the tax reporting will go to IRS and with the trustee Social Security number, and they don't have any interest in the property. You're doing them an injustice. So the beneficiary Social Security number is the one that you will use if one is called for on that assumption package. However, I have a habit of putting "to be applied for" in that spot. By the way, does an ID number required for a trust?
No.
No? No federal ID numbers needed?
No federal ID number, no separate tax reporting. We'll get to that.
Okay. So do you see how that avoids loan liability when you're assuming a no qualifying loan? What about when you're giving an owner-back, seller carryback financing? Same thing. Trust buys house. Trustee signs the mortgage as trustee. As long as the words "as trustee" are after the trustee's name, you not have personal liability on that note mortgage unless he does something illegal, unless he commits fraud, or something of that nature. For non-payment, the trustee is not going to be held liable. You as the beneficiary are not even on the note mortgage. In fact, you're not even in the paperwork anywhere except on your own trust agreement. The beneficiary signs nothing when you're buying. Nothing. You don't even exist as far as the seller is concerned. So let the trustee assume it as trustee. Therefore, you're not liable. They're not liable. What's liable? The property is liable for the note mortgage. So we've avoided loan liability except in those cases where we have to go into our bank and borrow money and personally guarantee them.
That's correct.
Okay?
Another benefit of the land trust is that anybody can own it. Now, how you own your interest in your land trust is you lift yourself as the beneficiary on the schedule. You can own it. You and your wife, you and a partner, a partnership, a limited liability company, a limited partnership, a corporation. Any entity can own the land trust, including your living trust. Which brings us to another point, which is this is the beginning of an estate plan for you. First thing you did is protect your assets. The next step that you need to look at down the road is using a living trust to avoid probate and keep control of your assets so they go where you intend after you die. But that's another seminar.
Well, let's go ahead and expand on that while we're on it.
Okay.
Is it a good idea to title your properties to a living trust as most estate planning attorneys will advise?
No.
Why?
The reason for that is this. In your living trust, you're going to put basically everything of value that you own. You don't want to put everything you own in one spot and then put it all, your real estate, titled into the living trust, because it exposes all your assets to liability, which is what we're trying to avoid. You never take title in your living trust to real estate.
Because the living trust will be the deed holder as a public record.
That's right.
As the owner of the property.
That's right.
So, in other words, if something happened on that property, smoke alarm doesn't go off and kids get burned up in a fire, there's no question that the owner of the property will get sued.
That's right.
And the owner of the property happens to be your living trust, which contains everything you own.
That's right.
So in other words, you're saying everything you own would then be at risk.
That's right.
Doesn't sound too smart to me, does it to you?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. So what you're going to do is this. You're going to own your properties in the land trust, and your land trust will be owned by your living trust. The living trust will be the beneficiary of the land trust. So now you've got what you want, which is your real estate inside of and controlled by your living trust, but you don't expose it to liability.
Well, what did that accomplish?
That keeps me from getting sued in my living trust.
Okay. Now, let's take that same scenario. The land trust now owns the house, not the living trust. The land trust owns the house. The fire happens. What gets sued? The land trust, because it owns the house. What's at risk? What's in the land trust? One house.
Right.
So instead of having all your other assets at risk, because the land trust is the deed holder of public record, it's the only thing that's at risk, is whatever's in that trust is that one property. So it doesn't even affect your living trust that way. In fact, your living trust will never even come into it. No one will even know it exists, except you and the other parties in it. Since it's not on public record, it's not subject to attack. You never want a living trust to be on title as the owner of a property.
That's correct.
And if it is now, if you have living trust now that own houses, simply a matter of having the living trust deed it to the land trust, and then have the land trust beneficial interest attached to your asset page of your living trust. What are the tax consequences of a land trust?
There are absolutely no tax consequences to a land trust.
Good or bad?
Good or bad.
Okay.
It's transparent to the IRS. Your tax return doesn't change. You're transferring it into a trust does not create a tax event, and doesn't change the basis, doesn't change anything.
So you don't have any tax consequences.
That's right.
It's not a tax planning move. It's not a device to avoid paying taxes.
Nope.
It's simply a device for taking title to property.
That's right.
So if we're reporting this property that we own on a Schedule E in our tax returns now, we will continue to do so.
That's right.
Nothing will change.
Exactly.
In fact, our CPA doesn't even need to know that we have it in a land trust, does he?
That's right. And the IRS doesn't care.
The IRS doesn't care. You're reporting just like you always reported. In fact, if you go to your CPA and try to explain this to him, he's going to make a mess out of it because he's not going to understand it. So there's no reason for you to even tell him. Just keep on reporting like you're always reporting. Put the title to the property in the land trust. So you don't need. Do you need a tax ID number?
No,
That's right. Not need a tax ID number, and so there's no special reporting required to IRS for owning property in land trust.
That's right.
No special reporting either. Okay. When I'm putting my property into a land trust, do I have to pay transfer taxes?
No. In most states, no. Some states like Florida, it's like $10. It's a very small fee.
$7 plus the cost of recording in Florida.
Yeah.
Just the bare basics or none in most states. We're in Florida right now, Sean, and I know some folks in here are concerned about their homestead exemption. Let me answer this one since I happen to be a Floridian.
Okay.
And proud of it. In the state of Florida, the first $25,000 worth of property taxes is tax exempt if you reside in the premises. That's called homestead exemption. Some people in Florida are concerned about putting their property in a land trust because they're afraid they're going to lose the homestead exemption because their name is not on public record. All it takes to do to keep your homestead exemption is to put on your deed that the beneficial interest within this land trust resides in the property. And you will get homestead exemption. I've had my properties that I live in homesteaded in the state of Florida and in land trusts for several years. Okay, let's see. Next question. Can the lender call the loan due? The answer is we covered that, didn't we?
That's right. The answer is
federal law for the lender to call the loan due.
Right.
Okay. Well, Sean, here's a biggie. Who should be my trustee?
Ooh. Somebody you trust, Ron.
Somebody I trust. Well, I don't know if I know of anybody I trust, Sean.
The best people that you can use for a trustee: children, brothers and sisters, family members
of age.
It's over 18.
Yeah, okay, not minor children.
All right. Somebody that you can trust. Family members are the best because generally they're the cheapest. Attorneys cost you money. I'm the trustee for many people where I live, but they got to pay me for the privilege. Now, you probably don't want to do that because if you're going to be buying and selling a lot of real estate, you're going to add a lot of expense to it that you don't need to. Preferably, it'll be someone without the same last name as you. If I see you hanging around the property and your last name is the same as the trustee's, it doesn't take a really smart person. I mean, even a lawyer can figure out that maybe you guys are related.
Okay, so basically what you're trying to do is make sure that your last name is not on public record to have anything to do with this property.
That's right.
So if you have your spouse be your trustee, then your last name will be there. If you have a child with your last name as being your trustee, so what you're really talking about is a married daughter.
That's right. Married daughter, married sister.
Could you use your wife's maiden name?
Yes, you could.
Use your wife as your trustee and use her maiden name.
Yes, you could.
Okay.
Of course, you face a problem if you can't get her signature notarized.
So, in other words, in order for anybody to use their wife's maiden name, she must be able to prove that she's who she says she is at the time she deeds out the property.
That's correct.
Okay. Which is not that big of a problem if she can prove it, right?
Right.
All right. Can your trustee be out of state?
Absolutely.
out of the country.
Absolutely.
FedEx goes everywhere, don't they?
They do indeed.
Okay. Why is it so important that you have a trustee that you trust?
Because they have the power to deed the property. Now, this would mean they have to steal it and be fraudulent and all that kind of stuff, but, some people would do that.
So in other words, I could be going on a trip to Hawaii when we can come back and my trustee deed away my property and left town, and I got a problem, don't I?
Yes, you do.
The trustee actually signs the deed as trustee. The beneficiary signs no deed. However, any closing statement, any closing agent will want to the beneficiary to grant the trustee the right to sign it in writing just to protect themselves at the time of the sale. Most closing agents. However, it's true that many closing agents don't have a clue what this trust stuff is.
Absolutely.
So, that may pass them by. Or the trustee may go find a friend and say, hey, man, let me give you a great deal on this property. Look, public record says I'm the owner. It says Ron LeGrand is trustee here. Let me deed you this thing. Give me $2,000 and I'll give you $50,000 worth of equity. I just got to go. To an unsuspecting person, they don't know any different. And trustee's gone. You can't find him. He's deeded your property. You got to come back and file suit, claim fraudulent conveyance, and create a mess. That don't scare them nothing will, huh?
That's right.
Okay. Find a trustee that you trust, or is it possible you could be your own trustee?
Well, you could be your own trustee, but you ever get to court, the court's going to go flying right through this trust.
So in other words, if you're the trustee and the beneficiary, and you were my opposing attorney and you were coming after me and you found out that I was both, you would pierce that trust like it came with Vaseline, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
All right. So, however, if I'm the trustee, if I'm the beneficiary and the trustee, who's in control of the document that says I'm beneficiary?
You are.
Oh, it's in my filing cabinet at home.
Yes, it is.
So, in other words, you telling me that could be changed?
It could be changed.
Could be changed. Okay. We're getting ourselves in a mess here on camera. You understand?
All I gotta say is, what I don't know can't hurt you.
Okay.
Let me put it to you that way, Ron.
However, the only person that I would want to change the beneficial interest to, in case I got bombarded with a lawsuit where they couldn't find out, would be my spouse. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
You're going to subpoena my tax returns, aren't you?
That's right.
If that property showing up on that tax return, and I'm the beneficial interest, and now all of a sudden I'm not, then they're going to want to know what happened to the property.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm the beneficial interest and I get subpoenaed, could my wife quickly become the beneficial interest?
Yes, she could.
Does that show up on the tax return?
Yes, the same way it did when you owned it.
Yes. In other words, there's nothing on the tax returns that distinguishes wife's interest from husband's interest.
No, there is not.
Man, I'll tell you what. I like that. Does the trustee have personal liability? We talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah, they don't, as long as they sign as trustee. I always want to put trustee after their name.
Or unless they commit some kind of fraudulent act. For
Right,
instance,
yeah.
if that trustee deeded that property away while I was in Hawaii, that's fraud, and I could physically put him in jail for that. But what if my trustee dies?
Then you just appoint a new trustee.
Before or after you attend the funeral?
It's up to you.
Okay. Trustee dies, your trust gives you the power to appoint a new trustee. You don't need their permission. What if I want to fire them, Sean?
You just fire them.
Just fire them. There's
Tell
a
them they're
document
gone.
within the trust that allows you to appoint a new trustee, whether your old one wants to resign or not. This kind of trust allows you to do that. Some kinds of trusts do not. This is not. This is a revocable trust, by the way, isn't it, Sean?
That's right, which means you can change it anytime you want to.
That's correct. You can change it or kill it anytime you like. So if my trustee dies or if I want to appoint another one, we maintain control as beneficial interest.
That's right.
All right. I like that too.
Absolutely.
Okay. Can I be my own trustee? We covered that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh, you're going to like this one, Sean.
I love this.
Do I need an attorney?
Only in Pittsburgh, Ron. Only in Pittsburgh.
Do I need an attorney?
No, you do not need an attorney to do a land trust. We're going to go through the documents and show everybody how to put property in land trust, what the deed looks like, how to fill out the trust, something that anybody can do in any state. Some states require more information in the trust than the trust that we're going to be using this morning. There's some additional things that need to go in there, but it's something everybody can do themselves, which makes it beautiful because now you have an entity which doesn't require any additional tax reporting, very low cost to use, but which provides a great deal of protection for the real estate.
Well, Sean, I know that the people are not going to feel comfortable with the fact that they don't need an attorney to do this. And I know from experience that many people are going to go out and try to seek the advice of an attorney to advise them on land trust, and tell me what they're going to run across from an attorney's point of view.
Ooh, let's see. First thing they're going to hear, and this is one of my favorite lines, is it's illegal to put a property in trust because it'll hide it. Okay.
Incidentally, is this trust legal in all 50 states?
Yes, it is.
Okay. In other words, it can be used in any state.
That's right.
Even Cleveland.
Yes.
All right.
Cleveland was a state.
All right.
Now, what you got to realize, folks, is that the attorneys of the world, and the U.S. in particular, generally don't have a clue when it comes either to asset protection or land trust. They have no idea. It was not on the law school curriculum. It was not anything they did in their law firm. They just don't know. When you go to look for an attorney that does this, you got to ask a lot of questions and ask a lot of people how to find one. Sometimes you'll find somebody through your real estate association. Mm-hmm. You should belong to your local real estate investors association. Mm-hmm. And in that, you're going to find people who deal maybe with trust or with an attorney who knows a lot about real estate. Mm-hmm. Now, first clue that you do is you call them up and say, hey, do you know anything about land trust? The guy says yes. Ask him when the last time was he did one. Mm-hmm. And ask him how many thousands he charged. Because it shouldn't cost you a lot. In my office, I charge generally $300 to prepare a land trust and a deed. It's my standard fee. I don't know where I got the number. I just came up with it. But Ron, for instance, first time you did it cost you, what, $800-900?
$1,300 to get 4 of them done at one time, which is a fill-in-the-blank deal. And that's where I got my first one from, yes.
Yeah.
$1,300.
And then you rewrote it so that it made sense.
I didn't rewrite it. No, I used one that was professionally done by an attorney who really did understand this, and I've just been duping it and using it ever since. Mm-hmm. And my title company, when I take title to a property, my title company has it. They just fill it out for me, hand it to me, fill out the deed that they know they're going to use, so I don't even have to do this anymore. They have all been doing it for years. Any closing agent who does this over and over for you will do it for you. You don't have to even worry about the documentation. But the first one did cost me $1,300. And frankly, to be honest with you, I don't think the attorney who did it knew a whole lot more about it than I did.
No, probably not.
But it was in his computer.
Yes.
So he spitted it out. The point I think we're trying to make here is that there are very few attorneys who are skilled and schooled on land trust. It's not their fault. They can't know everything either. They're just specialists, just like every other profession. Just like a brain surgeon. You won't get him to fill your teeth for you, because you don't know how to fill teeth, but they're both doctors. An attorney specializes in whatever it is he does. And the problem is that even those who specialize in asset protection and estate planning, many of them don't have a clue what a land trust is, because in many areas it's not a commonly used device. It's just not a commonly used device. So when you mention the word trust or land trust, they assume it's some other kind of trust. Sometimes it gets confused as for a Massachusetts business trust. Sometimes you can say land trust and they're thinking living trust. Sometimes they think that you are talking about an irrevocable trust, and they associate all of these other things that come along with it that just aren't true about a land trust. So make sure they understand what kind of trust you're talking about. What I run across commonly, what most students say is that, well, there's no reason to use that trust in this state, because they think that you're probably trying to hide assets, and they don't understand all the other benefits that come along with it. The truth is, there's no reason to not use a land trust.
That's very true.
There is absolutely no sound reason to not use a land trust. None whatsoever. There are no negatives. There are no downsides. It's all positive and no negative. Does it cost any extra to use a land trust?
No.
Not a dime. Does it cost 1 red cent more to take title of a land trust than it does in your own name? If you're going to try to find an attorney, again, a referral is the best way to find one. If you feel like you've got to have advice, the problem with that, Sean, and I really don't have a good answer to this, to be honest with you. What I see happening is that students will go get advice from attorneys. The attorney will give them poor advice because they don't fully understand it, and because they're the attorney, that's the advice they'll follow.
That's right.
The purpose of this tape is to educate you on land trusts. That's why we're here. Don't let an attorney give you a reason why you shouldn't do it that doesn't make sense to you, and you just follow that advice blindly. If the attorney comes up with something that does make sense, question them. Make sure you understand what they're really saying. And if you're going to try to get advice from an attorney, you're going to have to ask the right questions in order to get the right answers. That's why I've got Sean here. Sean is an attorney. He does this on a national basis. Is it okay if they were to have their attorney call you if necessary?
Yes, I've talked to a lot of attorneys all over the country for
Okay.
just this purpose.
Okay, so if you run across an attorney that really wants to know, have them call Sean. If you run across an attorney who doesn't want to know, say thank you, have a nice day, and go find another one.
Yes, and one more attorney warning. Attorneys have a big tendency to want to take all your real estate and put it into one trust. You go to an attorney blindly and say, I want to put my property into trust. They will do that for you. They'll take all your eggs from this basket and they'll put them over to this basket. Do not let them screw you up. Every property goes into a separate land trust.
Okay, well, Sean, when do I record this trust agreement?
You never recorded the trust agreement, Ron.
Oh. That was
Trick
a
question. See, I knew that. See if I'm still with you.
So you never record the trust agreement.
That's right.
You only record the deed.
That's correct.
The deed gets recorded, the trust agreement goes in your filing cabinet at home. No one sees the trust agreement but you and whoever else is on that beneficial interest with you. In fact, your trustee doesn't even see the trust agreement. The trustee signs where you ask him to sign. You don't need to leave the trust agreement with the trustee. So basically, you're in control of the evidence, aren't you?
That's correct.
All right. When you're renting property and you're managing them yourself, what name would you put on the rental agreements?
It's up to you. You can use your own name. You have a right to manage and control the property under the lease agreement. Or you can put the trust name on there and have the trustee sign a bunch of them ahead of time so that the trust would be named in the lease.
Okay. I wouldn't suggest that. I don't like that idea. And I'll tell you why I don't like it. Because the trustee does nothing from the day they sign you in until the day they sign you out. I don't want my trustee involved in my business. And frankly, I don't want any repercussions of my business coming on to my trustee and creating a problem for them. So therefore, I will not use my trustee's name when I'm leasing. I'll use my name, or we could even look into starting a management corporation.
That's correct.
We're going to do this on a regular basis and be landlords to any great degree, and let the management corporation manage the property, which is nothing more, by the way, than getting that corporation incorporated and using it for management purposes. There are some side benefits to that too.
Oh, good benefits.
Talk about that on another tape.
Another tape.
Okay. Who would receive the rent?
Well, if you've got it set up in your own name, you get the rent. If you're going to use a management corporation, they would collect the rent. Once again, you're going to just want to take all your rent, all your income, put it into one account, pay all the bills out of the central account.
When you go to sell the property, are they going to run across? It's going to be hard to transfer the title. They're going to run across a lot of garbage from the closing agents.
Well, they could run into a problem only if the guy doesn't know what he's doing. And I'll tell you how you solve that problem, because there shouldn't be any problem. When they get confused, you tell them, pick up the phone and call the Chicago office of whatever their title company is. See, Land Trust started in Illinois. All the Chicago title companies have this down cold. So if you have them call the Chicago office, they can answer all his questions much faster than the local attorney he's going to call, who doesn't know any more than he does. Don't have the blind leading the blind. Let them call the guys that do this every day in Illinois. You'll get a real quick response, solves any problems. But there are no title problems associated with this.
The truth is, the only thing that's on public record is the deed anyway, isn't it?
That's right.
They never see the trust. So all they're going to see is John Doe as trustee. Many times, they won't go any further than that. You'll just deed it out. John Doe as trustee is deeding it to whoever you're selling it to. However, some of them will want to see the trust agreement. Now, if they want to see the trust agreement, you're going to have to furnish them the trust agreement. No problem. The minute you sign the deed, the trust is dead anyway. Furnish them the trust agreement and answer whatever questions they want you to answer, whatever it is they want you to do. There are a few cases where I've had to do exactly that. Most of the time, you won't have to do anything. You should not have a problem. There are no title problems created here, but every once in a while I run across a situation where they want to make a mess to get out.
Exactly.
If you're using the same closing company, title company, or closing agent over and over again, it won't be a problem past the first one anyway.
Right.
Okay? Can I refinance the property if I have it in a land trust?
Absolutely. If you want to go to a bank, now Ron, close your ears, and borrow money, you can borrow money from the bank while it's in the trust. Most banks will let you do that. Had clients borrow many millions, various sums from banks while the property's in a land trust. The trustee will execute the mortgage in the note to bind the trust and secure the property with the mortgage. You will execute the documents such as the note and a guarantee agreement that make you personally liable. If you go to a bank and they say, I'm not sure how to do this, just tell them pretend it's a corporation and that you're the shareholder and somebody else is the officers, and that'll help them understand what you're doing.
Or they're going to say, take it out of the trust, put it in your own name, close a loan, and then you can go put it back in the trust immediately.
That's right. If you have to do that, you can do that.
That's the worst case scenario. It's the worst case scenario. And that'll be the only time that you won't take title in land. If you're going to buy a property and you know you're going to immediately refinance it, might as well just buy it in your own name, go refinance it, and then put it in a land trust. Speaking of that, Sean, suppose I'm buying and selling properties in a corporation. Do I take title in the corporate name or in the land trust?
In the land trust. You never want to expose your corporation, which has other assets, to liability when you don't need to.
So in other words, you're saying that if the money goes in the corporation and comes out of the corporation and the property is reported as a corporate sale to IRS, then it's a corporate property without the corporation actually being on the deed.
That's right.
Like Disney, huh?
Disney.
In other words, Disney World is a corporate property, but Disney World, Inc. doesn't own the land.
That's correct.
Okay. It's how it's reported and where the money goes in and out that makes it a corporate property. So you take title in the land trust just like you would any other way, but you use corporate funds to buy and sell the property.
That's right.
And you report it as a corporate property. Okay? Can you think of any other questions?
You want to talk about dealer status?
Dealer status. Oh boy.
It's on the test run.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about dealer status.
Okay.
First of all, what is a real estate dealer?
According to the IRS, and they are vague at best, but the whole point of a dealership, as far as the IRS is concerned, for dealer status is somebody who purchases real estate, holds it with the intent to immediately resell it and make a profit.
Actually, the word immediate is not in the code.
That's right. It's not immediate.
Buy with the intent to sell, you're a dealer.
Right.
We're in trouble, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're quick turning property, if you're flipping properties rapidly, those properties could cause you to be called a dealer.
Well, Sean, why don't I want to be called a dealer? Doesn't sound too bad to me. I mean, car dealers are okay. Why wouldn't I want to be a real estate dealer?
Car dealers are okay?
Why wouldn't I want to be a real estate dealer, Sean?
The reason you don't want to be a real estate dealer is you lose some benefits. Number one is you're not allowed to depreciate the property.
No depreciation?
And that's not only the property you're flipping, that's the stuff you're holding long term.
Whoa. You mean if I'm a landlord now and I got 25 properties and they say I'm a dealer, I can't depreciate my 25 properties?
That's right, Ron.
Ooh.
Not only that, the rent is not rent anymore.
What is it?
Now it's income on your Schedule C, and you get to pay Social Security and Medicare tax on that.
Self-employment tax?
Self-employment tax.
Man, I don't think I'd like. You mean I have to pay 15% of everything on the bottom line?
Yes, sir.
And I can't use depreciation?
That's right.
So the bottom line's going to be bigger.
Bigger. And if you sell a property and hold a note, used to be that you'd get money every year and the money when you got it was taxable.
You mean
now the note's going to be taxable in full the year you receive the note, even though you don't get the cash.
Wait just a moment here. You mean to tell me that if I buy a property for 50 and sell it for 80 with owner financing, taking back a mortgage or a trust deed, I got a $30,000 profit, but even though I'm taking that back in monthly installments, then I'm going to get taxed on that whole $30,000 in the year of the sale?
Absolutely.
As if I received it in cash?
Yes.
Man, I don't like that.
And you also cannot do tax-deferred exchanges on any property if you've been declared a dealer.
Boy.
So you don't want to be a dealer.
Doesn't sound like we want to be dealers, does it? Yeah. Well, how do we avoid this? Because we're going to buy and sell properties.
That's right.
That's our intent.
Absolutely. And what you're going to do is this. You're going to form another entity. Generally speaking, a corporation.
Okay.
And you're going to use that corporation solely for the purpose of buying and selling real estate that you intend to sell for a profit quickly.
So in other words, I would use that to buy and sell the ones I'm going to generate cash with.
That's right.
But I wouldn't do installment sales in that, would I?
No.
because they would be taxed in cash.
That's right.
Now, there are times when that might make sense. If I've got a loss in the corporation, I might choose to go ahead and let them write off the profit from the installment sales now because the corporation could sustain it.
Right.
But most of the time, we normally wouldn't want to do that. If
That's right.
the corporation's making money, we probably wouldn't want to do that.
That's right. You're going to separate out your property. The long-term investments, you're going to hold yourself or in a separate entity, a separate corporation. Property you're going to be flipping, you're going to want to have in one corporation or several corporations, whatever you want to do, but separate from everything else. So when the IRS comes in and says, you're the dealer, they aren't talking to you now. Now they're talking to your corporation. And you don't care because you're not putting rent in there, you're not putting anything else in there, you're just putting in properties that you're reselling for a profit you'd have to pay tax on anyway.
Well, you could put rent in there. But,
if you wanted to.
Yeah, but not on your investment properties.
That's right.
So basically you're taking the heat off of yourself, setting up this dealer entity to be the dealer, and then you can be an investor over here and wear two hats.
Right.
Okay. Well, Sean, I'm working a full-time job, or I've got a business that takes up most of my time, and it's kind of obvious that I'm making my living from that business, but I'm buying and selling properties over here on the side. Am I going to get tagged a dealer?
Well, the IRS claims no, but then they've done it anyway.
Yeah. So.
And we had somebody just recently in one of our classes that had that problem.
Let me point that out. The reason that someone recently in our class had that problem was because their CPA said they were a dealer and turned them in as such. Do not let your accountant call you a dealer. They don't understand the ramifications of it because they're not a dealer. That's why that person had that problem. We had a full-time employed individual who was called a dealer, and now he's got to go back and try to get out of that mess. It's very difficult to get rid of that tag, isn't it?
Yes.
Once you're a dealer, hard to get rid of that stigma.
But there's no reason to ever take that risk. It's not that hard to form and use a corporation. When you're making money, spend a little bit of it to make sure you protect all your other assets.
Well, when should I do this? When should I incorporate?
Monday would be good.
Okay.
I mean, the question is always to me, when do I need to protect myself? When do I need to incorporate? It's not a dollar figure. It's a business decision.
However, if I'm just starting and I haven't turned my first property, you think I ought to go incorporate before I do?
No, I wouldn't worry about it then.
In other words, go make some money, then worry about it?
Yeah, but after the first one, spend some of the money wisely.
Okay, if I'm going to buy and sell properties and that's going to be my chief source of income, and I might as well just do it and get it over with. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
By the way, real estate brokers exempt from being dealers?
No. Boy, do they get looked at hard.
Not only exempt, they're guilty of proven innocent.
That's right. That's right.
The IRS tells me that if I've got a full-time job or a profession that I should not be tagged as a dealer. But on the other hand, there's a lot of ifs in there. There's a lot of things that could go wrong with that scenario. For instance, if I'm making a whole lot more money flipping properties than I am working on my job, I'm in jeopardy, aren't I? But if I'm working a job and I'm turning 2 or 3 properties a month, in my opinion, you're not in jeopardy of being called
2 to 3 properties a month?
A year, I mean.
Okay.
A year.
Let's say if you're making $200,000 a year.
See, the problem is there is no defined number you have to turn.
That's right.
Before you're tagged as a dealer. It's just a very, very gray area.
Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is a warranty deed to trustee. Very simply, this is the deed that's going to transfer the property into the trust. When this deed is recorded, the property will now be titled in the name of the trust. And here's how the blanks get filled in. The grantors. That's you if you're conveying your own property to your trust. That's the seller if you're buying the property. Of the county, in this case of Clay, the state of Florida, for any consideration of $10 or $1 or love and affection, if you're in love with your trustee.
Never want to put the purchase price on there, do you?
That's right. We don't put purchase prices.
You disclose the purchase price to the rest of the world. Normal in Florida to use $10 and other valuable consideration.
Right. There's a place at the end of that first partial paragraph where it says, under provisions of section. If you know the section of your state law, and some of you have state laws in your states, you can fill in that section number. If you don't know it, forget about it. Just leave it blank. Unto Frank Smith or whoever is the trustee. The trustee's name goes in that space. And then it says, as trustee and not personally, under the provisions of a trust agreement dated the 14th day of June, or any date that's the date you sign a trust agreement. Same date as the deed.
Trust agreement should bear the same date as the trust deed.
That's right.
And make sure that happens, because if that doesn't, you may have a problem trying to explain why you got two different dates.
Okay, next thing you're going to do is identify the trust. It's known as trust number. Put the house number in there, or call it the 123 Main Street Land Trust. However you want to name the trust, you can do that, and it will go right there.
I always use the street address because it makes it easy for me to identify which property. I can't look at the legal and tell which house it is. I can look at the number of the street address and tell me immediately which house it is.
That's right. The following described real estate in the county and state it's located in. In the space provided, you're going to insert the legal description of the property. Now, I know some of you can't type. Even those of you that can type, we do not want you typing on here any more than necessary. Because if you mess up the legal description, you screwed up the whole title. So let's give them the easy version, Ron. Go ahead.
All right, take a copy of something in your files with your legal description on it. Cut out your legal. Paste it on the front of your deed here. Make a copy of that. And now that becomes your original document when you complete filling it out. That keeps you from putting a comma in the place of a period, or an and in the place of an or, and totally changing your legal description. However, if you're deeding your own property to a land trust, what's the worst case scenario?
You might have to deed it again.
You have to go back and do it right when it becomes time. It's more important if you're taking title from a seller to you who is leaving the country immediately after the sale. You will have a miserable time finding them. In that particular case, it's up to the title company or the attorney closing it to get the legal description properly done anyway.
Next up, legalese, 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 legalese. Tons of it. And what it means is this: the trustee has all the power and authority we need him to have, or her to have, to handle the title to the property and do what we need them to do.
So you're saying that this deed is not a regular warranty deed or a regular quitclaim deed. It has special language in there tailored to the trust.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you how I learned about this deed, by the way. Let me explain this to him, Sean. I did a couple of hundred properties in a regular warranty deed before an attorney politely pointed out to me that it didn't give me the power to deed away the house. It didn't give the trust the power. I got away with it. Until an attorney who actually knew more about this than me, which isn't that difficult, found that I was doing it wrong and pointed out to me that I better start using the right deed, and that's how this one became available. I don't care what state you're in, you can't go wrong using this deed. Some states you'll get away with using the regular warranty deed, but why not use the right one? It's right here in your hands. This is a special deed to the trustee with the right language in it. Okay?
And you need the language. I've had attorneys in the great state of Florida who have told their clients flat out that they don't like the trust language and they don't want to use it. Do not let your attorney outsmart you, which may be hard sometimes. Okay? Use the language. It's there for a reason. Sometimes it's not obvious. The day you get into court, much of it will become obvious. These things are here for a reason. Okay? Don't second guess them.
And they've been time tested. They've been proven. There's no reason for you to try to reinvent the wheel.
That's correct. Finally, on the second page of the deed, you're going to sign it, have it notarized, and folks, it's a deed. You can just go down to the courthouse and record the deed.
Wait a minute, Sean. Let me look at this thing here.
I know it's too easy, Ron.
You need an attorney to fill out a deed, don't you?
In Pittsburgh. But nowhere else in the country, Ron, do you need it.
That all there is on this deed is the seller, the buyer, the date, the number, and the legal description.
Oh yeah, but you have to sign it, Ron.
And the grantor has to sign it and get it notarized and witnessed.
That's right. That's all there is to it. Trust agreement. Very simple. It's all completed, so you see what it looks like. We'll give you the blank one as well. The bold highlighted parts are the only parts you have to fill in. This is easy. I'm going to explain to you what the paragraphs mean, but I'm not going to read 12 pages to you. You can read it later. But it just starts out that this land and trust agreement is made this blank day, 21st day of November, 1993. It's made between you, if you're the beneficiary, or the seller if he was putting it in a trust for you to take the assignment of beneficial interest. But generally, it's going to be you that is taking the property in trust. So you're the beneficiary. Ignore the grantors and beneficiaries part. Just think of yourself as the beneficiary, because that's what you are.
The grantor in this document doesn't mean the same as the grantor on a deed, does it?
That's right.
What you're doing is granting the powers to the trust, in this case, not granting the title to the property. So just ignore the word grantor and look at the word beneficiary.
Right.
And put your name or names. All beneficiaries' names should go on that line. But you and your spouse, you and your partner, whatever, should go on that line. Okay?
Next paragraph, the trustee's name. The trustee will be a party to the agreement. It's how you bind them to the transaction. And then it's trustee of whatever the trust is, the 123 Main Street Land Trust. Then if you go down to paragraph 1, we're going to name the trust. The title of the trust in this case is the 123 Main Street Land Trust. You're halfway to getting this document done. You filled in the first page. We're not going to fill in anything else for several pages, but let me tell you what the paragraphs mean. Paragraph 2 says the purpose of the trust is to hold title to the property, and when you direct the trustee to do so, to deed the property. Not supposed to do a lot until then. Paragraph 3 says that the trust property is the property deeded into it that's put on Schedule A and listed there in the legal description you'll see in a minute. Paragraph 4 says the powers and duties of the trustee. They have all kinds of power, but they can only exercise it when you direct them to do so in writing. So when you want the trustee to do something, Ron, send them a little note. Say, do this, do that, whatever you want them to do. Number 5, compensation of trustee. The trustee should get paid. You'll see on the schedule that we show you how to tell them how much they're going to get paid, which is, generally speaking, not a lot. It's a family member. You don't want to spend all your profits paying your trustee, unless he's your attorney in Pittsburgh.
My daughter's my trustee sometimes. She gets a big goose egg. She gets love and affection. And everything that's left when I'm not around.
She's the rate you're spending it, Ron? I don't know if that'll be much.
I told her I'm going to spend her inheritance. Don't worry about it.
Paragraph 6, the liability of the trustee. The trustee is not personally liable. They're not responsible for the trust. Only if they do something wrong are they responsible. Paragraph 7 says you can remove the trustee and appoint a successor. Paragraph 8 says that the trustee can resign by giving you notice of his intention to do so, and you can appoint a successor. Paragraph 9 tells you that there are no income tax returns due, and the trustee does not have any tax reporting responsibilities. Paragraph 10, you will indemnify the trustee. This means if he has to pay out money or advances money on behalf of the trust, that you will pay him back. Trustee's not going to be responsible for your actions, but if he happens to get involved in litigation with the trust, you'll take care of him, pay his expenses, etc.
And he has a lien on the trust until you do, doesn't he?
That's right.
Yes.
So, and he doesn't have to sell it for you until you pay him off. Paragraph 11 says that when you deal with the trustee, any outside party has no reason to look any further than dealing with the trustee. They don't need to worry about looking at the trust agreement or anything like that. Paragraph 12, the beneficiaries, that's you, are the people that own the property, and they are listed separately on the schedule in Schedule C. Paragraph 13 tells you that the interest of the beneficiaries consists of 3 rights: the right to direct the trustee to deal with the title, the right to manage and control the property, and the right to receive all the benefits, all the money, and all the tax deductions from owning the property. Paragraph 14 says that you can assign the beneficial interest, just like we talked about. To do that, you just use the assignment of beneficial interest form. We'll show you in a minute. 15 says you cannot disclose the beneficiaries. If you disclose the names of the beneficiaries and there is a loss to the beneficiary because of that, you will be writing a check, because it also puts a provision in there that you can recover for a loss if someone reveals your name when they should not do so. Don't record the agreement. 17 says this is the whole agreement, and that is everything up to paragraph 18. Governing law. Where it says in that first paragraph, state of Pennsylvania, put in the state of whatever your property's located.
The state where your property's located, not where you're located.
That's right. 19 says it's binding. 20 says there will be annual statements, which strangely enough look like your tax returns. 21, 22, and 23 are just housekeeping provisions. Finalize some legalese. That brings us to page 7, and now you got to do some more work. You're going to have to sign the document now. And right down below that, the trustee is going to sign the document. The acknowledgement page, that's where it's going to be notarized. Notary will figure that out if you can't, because they're good at that. That's what they get paid for. Schedule A. Pretty obvious. You insert the legal description of the property, just like we talked about and Ron talked about with a deed. Just copy it right onto that schedule. Don't bother typing. And you can add on the next page on Schedule B the address of the property, so we know which property this is. Schedule C, what's going to go there? Your name, you're the beneficiary, and the percentage of interest you own. Here's where if you had a partner and you each owned 50%, you would list it out on this schedule. If the trust is assigned to someone else, and the interest is assigned, this schedule changes because the beneficiary's changed. And finally, Schedule D.
Wait a minute, let's stop just a second.
Okay.
I want to make sure that anybody listening to this understands that this is not a partnership agreement. This is a trust agreement. Even though we own 50% interest in this trust, perhaps, as equal partners, that doesn't mean we don't need a partnership agreement. The trust only tells us how we hold title. It doesn't tell us all of the arrangements within a partnership.
That's correct.
So we would still need a partnership agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And one final page, Schedule D, the compensation of trustee. I use a nice paragraph that doesn't mean a lot. It says the trustee will be paid on an annual basis according to the schedule of fees agreed to between the trustee and the beneficiaries. You can tell a lawyer wrote that one.
Right.
But that's a trust agreement, folks. That's all there is to it. You can fill in the blanks.
All right.
No problem there. The assignment of beneficial interest. This is almost self-explanatory. This is the document you use when you want to sell the beneficial interest in the trust or otherwise assign, transfer, or gift the interest in the trust. Pretty simple to understand this. Starts out with a date. Which happens to be my birthday next year. Those of you who wanted to know.
Attorneys have birthdays?
Yes. Where do you think we came from? Don't answer that question.
Whoa!
We're not turning him loose, that's for certain.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, you're filling your name, your address. Okay? And then in that blank underneath your address, you'd fill in the name of the person that's going to get the interest, whoever you're assigning it to, and their address. And then it just says, whereas you own the property and you're going to assign it to someone else, you're doing it. You sign down the bottom.
Pretty much self-explanatory, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what you do with this document? You put it in your filing cabinet.
You know, while we're talking about that, we probably ought to expand on that just a hair. I'm assigning the trust to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is a taxable event. There should be closing statements prepared so that you can report and I can report. And frankly, if Sean's an investor and I'm an investor and I'm assigning my trust to him, I don't think he's going to be foolish enough to not at least check the title, is he? He'll probably check the title. Does he need title insurance if he's buying my trust? The answer is no. The trust got title insurance the day I bought it, most likely. Title insurance is made out to the trust. So if he's taking my trust, he's taking my title insurance with it. So he doesn't need to pay for title insurance, but I don't think he's going to do it without at least checking the title and making sure everything's kosher. That will be his only closing cost, $50, $75, $100 to check the title. We could sit here and fill out closing statements, what I'm paying, what his costs are. I mean, it's hard to figure out our costs here. There aren't any.
That's right.
That. We can figure out, all you got to do is put your purchase price on there and sign a closing statement. You got a closing statement, and that's the one we'll use for our accounting at the end of the year.
That's right.
Okay?
Very simple. The certificate of appointment of successor trustee. Pretty much self-explanatory, but when you have to appoint a new trustee, at some point you're going to have to put this information in the courthouse. That point is right before you either want to mortgage or sell the property. Because when you want to deal with the title, the trustee has to have authority to do that. They get that authority because there's a recorded instrument. Now notice, this document has your signature all over it as beneficiary. If you hand it to a closing agent along with the deed, the closing agent will go down to the courthouse, record the appointment, and then record the deed, and it's all done. And since you just sold it, who cares if anybody knows who owns it?
The trust is dead when the deed is delivered.
The certificate of resignation of your trustee. If your trustee wants to resign, you can give him this handy form. And he can sign it and say, hey, I'm out of here. And what do you do then? You just appoint a new trustee. That's all you have to do. Find somebody else that wants to be trustee.
Sean, why in the world would anybody want to be trustee?
Love and affection, Ron.
Yeah.
No.
I get that question quite a bit. And the truth is that unless you give them a reason, or unless they're a family member, or unless there's someone within your sphere of influence, perhaps you could be my trustee and I could be yours, for example.
That's right.
From everything we've heard so far, the trustee could be in jeopardy here if he were to do something illegal or so forth. So if you're going to have trouble finding somebody to be your trustee, again, you can always be it yourself as long as you understand the ramifications involved. Or you can't, many times people say, well, I don't know anybody I trust. I say, well, first thing you need to do is consider a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
My guess. You can always fall back on yourself if absolutely necessary.
If you wish to receive more information on Sean Casey's products, he can be reached at 888-787-9821 or online at www.seancasey.com/ron.htm.